Welcome to a special edition of Legal AF. Happy holidays to everybody. We're kicking off the Thanksgiving season. And there's been a lot of developments in cases involving people that we're aligned with. Democracy Forward and Skye Perryman got a great new decision that just came out with Judge Chutkan in a case that Skye and I talked about recently about the power of the Freedom of Information Act statute. Some people think, what is that? Well, it's the thing that Judge Chutkan just ruled upon on a summary judgment. And now, because a federal judge ordered it, we're likely to see the Epstein-Trump communications. Forget the bill, forget the law. It's a federal judge ordering it. How'd that happen? What's that all about? Well, Skye's going to join me and talk about it. And then they have got a new case or a consolidated case up in Massachusetts that Democracy Forward has brought on behalf of teachers' unions and disability groups about the wholesale chloroforming and destruction of the Department of Education. And if that happens, it's not going to be because Democracy Forward didn't try to stop it. And I want to talk about that new lawsuit up in Massachusetts as well. Let's welcome Skye Perryman, the head of Democracy Forward, here to Legal AF. Hi, Skye.
So good to see you. Hello.
Oh, you too. You too. As soon as I saw the ruling, I was like, I got to get Skye back to brief our audience on this one with Judge Chutkan. Now, you brought your group brought a lawsuit, got assigned to Judge Chutkan. Everybody knows Judge Chutkan on Legal AF. She was one of the judges that presided over the criminal prosecution of Donald Trump, brought by special counsel Jack Smith, related to election interference. But this is a whole nother case. You brought a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit because the Department of Justice and the FBI refused to turn over documents, not about the underlying Epstein files per se, but about their handling of the Epstein files. How did they go from their Pam, they're on my desk, Bondi, in let's say February, to a closeout memo that 2 pages that said, well, nothing to see here, folks. We're closing out the Epstein files, and testimony around that, to Ghislaine Maxwell back in the news with her giving testimony, to we're going to restart an investigation related to the Epstein files. How did all of that happen? What was Donald Trump told? What was Pam Bondi told? What was Kash Patel told? That was at the heart of your case, right, Skye?
Absolutely. Our case is about the cover-up. And as you and I talked about, we first of all had to file the case because the administration did not respond as it should have to our request for expedited processing. So we knew out of the gate that the administration was stonewalling and was trying to hide these communications. And these are about the cover-up. We want to know what the White House was saying to Bondi, what was happening between the Department of Justice and the FBI, what third parties were weighing in on these decisions, what is it that they want to hide. And so for a minute, the case was paused actually because of the shutdown. And of course, we know it seems like one of the reasons that Donald Trump wanted the government to remain shut down was because once it opened up, sunlight is shining on the Epstein controversy. So now that the government's fully functioning again, the court issued, as we expected, an order that that found that the government was in error for not processing our request in an expedited manner. So we are pursuing this. We told you we were going to move it. We told your viewers, and that's where it is.
And I love the strategy that your people used, in where you said, we also need the correspondence between Donald J. Trump and Jeffrey Epstein because of the reporting that FBI goes through, spends morning, noon, and night looking at the files in March, April. They then report to Pam Bondi. The reporting is Pam Bondi goes in May and tells the boss, Donald Trump, your name is all over the Epstein files. We know that from other reporting, like David Schuster just recently came out with a report where they've been briefing MAGA in Congress, including, I think, Marjorie Taylor Greene, saying it's worse for Donald Trump than we thought. And if that's part of the cover-up, then we need to see what the correspondence is with Donald Trump's name on it, right? Wasn't that your angle?
Absolutely. And the team did a great job on that piece of the case, as well as many others. And again, this is one of the ways people need to be using the courts. Every person in this country has the right to public records. When the government stonewalls, we can go to court and force those records. And so you're going to see that here. And I think it's a good complement to the work that the Congress is trying to do and that others are doing to try to also uncover what's happening here.
Yeah, and the trigger concept for a judge like Chutkan and Foya is that whether there's widespread and exceptional media interest. That's a term of art within Foya.
Right.
And she basically, as you led her there in your arguments, said Pam Bondi created effectively the widespread and exceptional media interest on her own. Yet another Bondi failure, right?
Correct. I mean, it's like the Keystone Cops over there, but it's a problem because it's hurting people. And so we're going to continue to pursue this vigorously. And also because the administration started claiming, you'll recall this. Do you remember when they said they were going to be the most transparent administration in history? And many people forget, the American people's interest in the Epstein files. I wish that the interest was only about the survivors and the victims of these terrible acts of violence and crime that we know happened, right? Under the guise of Jeffrey Epstein and Maxwell and the whole thing. But one of the reasons there's such, interest in this is not just because of the survivors and the victims, but is because of Donald Trump and the MAGA movement creating wide-ranging conspiracy theories around, who of their political opponents were engaged with Epstein. And so, this is sort of one of those, you need to be careful about the interest that you create, Donald Trump, because it's now coming back and people want to know. And again, I do think that the vast majority of the American people are really concerned because of the, deeply troubling crimes and violence. And we've heard from the survivors, themselves. And so all of that is of deep concern. And then on top of that, you have this MAGA layered conspiracy theory that is added to it. And now the president has to admit that he doesn't even want this out and has been engaged in a cover-up. And so I think that this is why we're really focused on that cover-up.
You've got James Comer, the head of the Oversight Committee, saying in the last day, I don't even think when my findings come out, they're going to be believed because of the conspiracy theories, right?
Exactly. And that's one of the things we've got to contend with as a nation and as a people and as a national community is the misinformation, disinformation, and conspiracy theories that this administration wheeled and dealed in order to get into office.
That's right.
That they now, are upset that the truth can possibly come out. And so I think that's a piece of this too. And it's why it's really important. Yes, it's important about the survivors. Yes, is it important for justice in this case? It is also important for the health of our democracy and society as a whole to call it out when you have people that are wheeling and dealing in misinformation and lying to the American people.
What I also liked, Skye, about your lawsuit is it reminds the American people that all these documents have never resided with Congress. They've always resided with the executive branch. Donald Trump never needed Congress to pass a bill for him to sign, to authorize the release of documents that have always been in his care, custody, and control.
Exactly. It's all his. And this is what we've seen him do this a lot. You and I talked about our SNAP litigation, but at the beginning of that, he acted like he just didn't have the authority to pay SNAP benefits. He would do it if he had the authority. And then multiple courts say, not only do you have the authority, you have the obligation, and then they still don't do it. And they fight tooth and nail. And so I think a lot of this is part of this strategy of making sure that if Donald Trump isn't going to level with the American people about who he is, that we force that leveling through our work in the courts.
And we'll see what happens in your case. I mean, you've got Kash Patel, claiming he can't, he just a month ago, he told Congress, there's nothing to see here. There's nobody involved but Jeffrey Epstein. Even MAGA senators were like, excuse me? And now he's like, the Epstein estate won't turn over documents while Pam Bondi still runs back to Florida to try to get judges to release, 8 pages of transcript from one FBI FBI agent who gave testimony, because they're trying to activate that lawsuit to block the release of files, right?
Yep. So you're going to keep seeing us fight on all fronts about this, but you want to talk about Department of Ed too?
Absolutely. So we've been watching this administration from day one try to chloroform and put and just completely destroy and put out of business the Department of Education, created in 1979 because of a need to make sure that there was equality in education. It runs so many hundreds of programs for disabled people, for children, for people in college, and administers things like Title IX to make sure there's equality in education among women. And I mean, it's just mind-boggling that a president would try to destroy the Department of Education, and then with a series of lies. You hear Linda McMahon say, well, we're just going to get rid of the red tape and make it so the states have the power. Then why are you chopping up the Department of Education and sending the programs off to Health and Human Services and the State Department and the Interior Department? You're just adding layers of incompetence. You're not putting education closer to the people.
Right. Absolutely. Well, this has been quite a journey on this case because we've won before every federal court that has considered whether the Department of Education can be decimated by this president. And let's just take a pause and remember, this was in Project 2025. On the campaign trail, the president acted like he didn't know what Project 2025 was. So just to be clear about that, didn't know who Russ Vought was, had no idea about anybody ever having to do with Project 2025. And then, of course, immediately when he comes into office, this administration has been accelerating Project 2025, which what we know about it is that it is deeply unpopular with the vast majority of Americans, not just liberal and progressive Americans, but moderate and conservative Americans too. So this is a deeply unpopular policy agenda, particularly the notion of decimating the Department of Education. We brought a case early on. We won. Every federal court to have considered what the president has done has said it is unlawful. The Supreme Court, without any explanation on its shadow docket, did not find that we had not won, but they paused the injunction that we had in place that was keeping the Department of Education from being decimated. Well, now there's more activity going on that needs to be challenged, and more communities that are being harmed. And so we amended that lawsuit in order to include new allegations about the mismanagement and the way the Department of Education is trying to use funds that Congress has appropriated for particular programs. They're not using it for those programs. They're trying to transfer things out of the Department of Education. All of this is contrary to the law. It is all contrary to the acts of Congress. It's arbitrary, it's capricious, and it is harming people, including, by the way, individuals with disabilities, individuals that have specific needs that our public school system and that our Department of Education is supposed to be and is mandated by Congress to fill. So we are really grateful for the brave plaintiffs in this case. We just added the ARC, which is a great organization that is helping with some of these communities. And so we are really excited about the plaintiffs in this case. We've amended our complaint. We are continuing to pursue this vigorously. And I think we'll win some court orders that'll really help a lot of people.
What is it with this administration, Skye, with going after, in the most depraved way, our most disadvantaged and fragile populations in society over and over again? How many times do you and I have to talk about Donald Trump going after and undermining the disabled community or children or babies before people get the message? And I think they are starting to, that we have a heartless presidency.
Yeah, I mean, I think the cruelty for them, it's not just that the cruelty is the point, it's that they view this cruelty as a way of desensitizing the American public to the suffering of people. Because one of the things that an autocracy has to have in order to be able to wield power is a desensitized public. Right, is a public that can look the other way while so much harm is happening, because maybe it's exhausting, because it's chaotic, because so much of it happens you can't even believe that it's happening. And so one of our principal goals at Democracy Forward is to ensure that people don't get desensitized to the harm that is happening, and by the way, to the fact that we all have rights in this country and the people still get to be in charge of this country, and there are ways that we can enforce those rights. And so that is a lot of what, these cases, they are wrong. The administration is wrong on the law. They are breaking the law left and right. They are harming people. But this is also, we've got years to go here. And this is also part of making sure that we are telling the stories, and that when this administration engages in this cruelty, that the American people are seeing it, and that we are forced to look it in the eye and not blink and decide what we're going to do in this moment. And so that's one reason I'm so proud of the team that has amended this complaint, that continues to vigorously be pursuing this litigation.
That's why I'm so glad you're with us here on Legal AF on a regular basis. And as I've said, and I think I'm going to be proven right, as will you, we can tolerate policy debates in this country, and it can cross over political stripes. But one thing the American people, if they are focused on it by organizations like yours, will not tolerate is a heartless president.
They don't tolerate, we do not tolerate also this kind of dictator-like, king-like, well, I'm just going to decimate the White House because I can. He can't, by the way, that's unlawful, but I'm just going to do this, or I'm going to, call over the Department of Justice and ask him to do my personal bidding. Or like here, I'm going to be cruel to people when Congress, right? When the people's representatives have said these programs need to exist, they are mandated, you've got to do this. And so that's a lot of our work. And I think that the case is a really strong one. Like I said, we've won before any court that has ever considered, anything approaching the merits of this case.
And we don't tolerate presidents who have their Department of Justice tell other people to tell federal judges to go F off. And on that note, as I'm watching some senior leaders in the Department of Justice head for the exits, voluntarily or otherwise, I'm always thinking to myself, God, that would be a great person to join somebody like Democracy Forward. You've got a great person who just joined Democracy Forward, didn't you?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'll say, first of all, we've been building the team. I mean, all these lawsuits that you feature, as you know, they are powered by people, they are powered by humans, and we've been building, I think, one of the best teams out there. We've got so many folks that have left the Department of Justice or other government positions to use their talent and expertise for the people in this moment. We've got folks that have left corporate, great corporate law jobs to use that expertise. And this week we announced that Erez Raveni, who was, many of your listeners may know, he did a 60 Minutes episode recently, but he was fired from the Department of Justice for refusing to lie to a federal court. And he is geared up and on the team now at Democracy Forward to push for the rule of law, to push for the American people. Folks can learn more about him on our website at democracyforward.org. He had some really great things to say about the power of this moment, the importance of being on the right side of the fight. And we're grateful to have him with us. But I will say and highlight, among so many other folks that are, really making changes to their careers. They're diving in. They're taking on cases in order to protect the American people, which is what we want people to know, is that there are lawyers are going to fight every single day for the people in this country.
And for him in particular, I mean, this was a person, 15 years serving 4 or 5 presidents in an apolitical career prosecutor way, and you never would have heard about this person until he told the truth to Judge Zinnes, which is now part of the record up to the United States Supreme Court, that Abrego Garcia was illegally removed to El Salvador. And it's part of the record because Erez Raveni told the truth and then got fired for it.
And and the Department of Justice, they really, it's unbelievable. I mean, we have to litigate these cases to force compliance with court orders all the time. But we want people to be hopeful. We want people to understand that in our lives, we all have to make a choice about what we're going to do when it's up to us. And in this instance, Erez made a choice to follow his professional ethics, his commitment to the Constitution. That landed him on the outs. That landed him. He was fired by the administration, but we are grateful to have him in the fight with us.
Absolutely. And we're grateful to have you, Skye Perryman, on behalf of Democracy Forward, join our audience and brief them on a regular basis about the 100 or more cases. And by the time the administration is over, it'll be over 1,000 cases. So glad to have Skye Perryman at Democracy Forward aligned with us here on Legal AF. She has a playlist, Democracy Forward playlist, with all of our interviews updating in real time, in real life, the cases that Democracy Forward handles as we shoulder to shoulder try to protect our constitutional republic and our rule of law. Take a minute, hit the free subscribe button for Legal AF. We're going to cross that 1 million subscriber barrier in the next couple of weeks with your help. Come over to Legal AF Substack and you can read for yourself the filings like Judge Chutkan's new order and the new lawsuit filed to try to protect and save the Department of Education. Until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.